So hi everybody, thank you so much for joining us today in this conversation. I'm Berenice Hernández and I'm part of the Myanmar team. After so much planning and thought, we decided to launch a series of talks to connect with artists, learn about their artistic practices, discover what inspires them and moves them, and how they all have a connection in some way with this project. After all, two of the founders of this project are artists. Before we start, I want to remind you that next week, next Saturday, we will host the third conversation of this series hosted by Lise Bjorn-Lindner and Anna Olson. Also, we have created a bundle dye workshop for you to learn the dyeing techniques we use in all Myanmar garments. The cost of the class is $25. Please register, you will find the link in our bio. So, hi Lucía, thank you for joining me today. And I think that we can just start by introducing ourselves. Could you please start?
Yes, hi Bere, and first of all, I'd like to thank you and Myanmar for inviting me to this talk. I'm Lucía Aragón. I'm an artist who mostly works through the mediums of site-specific walls, paintings, printmaking, drawing, and light installations. And I like to focus in subjects related to the contrast between light and darkness, and also the link between life and what do we have as beliefs for what happens after we die.
So, well, thank you so much, Lucía, for introducing yourself. And okay, so then I will introduce myself also. So I'm Berenice Hernández. I work with clay, paper, and other materials to create pieces with a fragile and ephemeral character. For me, they are reminders of our relationship to unstable spaces. How can they shape us? And those spaces are in state of suspense or at the mercy of an overwhelming catastrophe. And they can serve both to protect us and contain us, as well as shape us physically and emotionally. When I create my sculptures, I have all the time in my mind spaces like borders, walls, ruins, and homes, and also shelters. So I really wanted to talk to you, Lucía, because there are so many things that we have in common. We both made the decision to establish ourselves in Scandinavia, really far away from our country, which is Mexico. And of course, far away from our language, our family, our friends, and the familiarity of the everyday life. This, of course, has played a very big transformation in our artistic practice, but also in our life and the way that we relate to the world issues such as migration, and also the way we process all the information we get about what is happening in Mexico right now. And I refer to political, social, economical, and social issues. Before we go deep, if that is possible, first, why and when did you move to Oslo?
Well, I first moved to Oslo around 7 years ago because I came as an exchange student to the National Art Academy of Oslo. And I liked something specific about that program, that I think that in most art schools, the printmaking program comes together with the painting program, which I also like painting, but there was something about this one that I liked, and it's the fact that it comes printmaking and drawing, and it's not always that the emphasis on drawing is given like that in all art schools. So I thought that sort of intrigued me, since drawing has been a big part of me since I was a little girl. And so yeah, I came here first 7 years ago, and then I went to Mexico for 2 years to finish my studies, and then I was working, and then 4 years ago I came back for some personal reasons, but also to keep on with my art studies. I studied the master's there, and now it's 2 years since I graduated from the master's.
And that's where we met, in the Oslo National Academy of the Arts. And I remember meeting you and then having click with you immediately. And from my side, I have been living in Scandinavia for 5 years. Part of that time I lived in Sweden and part of that time in Norway. And I think that I came first with the idea of just studying ceramics for a year. But then, you know, like I really like ceramics, and as like you said, I also saw in the Oslo National Academy of the Arts that they had like a very interesting programs for me for ceramics. So I decided to stay. So I came for 1 year, and then now it has been 5 years since I moved from Mexico. And then I actually don't know what's going to happen next. And just like we decided to move to another country, there are many people that make this decision. For some, the reasons to leave their country behind are many, but some of them, they don't have a choice. They really have to migrate to other countries to get a better life, and then they can actually not go back. But for other persons, they move and then they live a life in the shadow because they don't have papers. But as I said, like you and me, we just really decided that we wanted to live in another country, and then we feel like really privileged for that. But it doesn't matter if you move because you are a refugee or just because you want to experience another country. I believe that there is a feeling that we all share, and it's the sense of being homeless, and the nostalgia, and the constant missing of home, and the sense of not belonging. So how have you experienced the fact that now you are an immigrant in Scandinavia?
Well, I think that it is in the moment when we cross our borders, the borders of the motherland, that one starts to question and about one's identity, and it's a constant reflection. So the wonders about identity, you know, what are we? How will we realize who we are? I think they have been there since I came. And I think it's also, you know, is this longing for Mexico in one hand, and also in the other hand is that I'm experiencing all the things that I'm experiencing here in Norway. But when I mentioned this thing about the longing from Mexico, for example, there is a book that it's called The Labyrinth of Solitude, which was written by Octavio Paz, and it talks a lot about the Mexican identity. And I think this book was written when he was living abroad. And I'm just mentioning this because even though we're far away, it doesn't mean that you know, we're still linked and connected, of course, to Mexico, since we are both from there. But so that's one thing. And another thing is that I also feel, since I'm an immigrant myself here, I have felt like I have a layer as an immigrant, and therefore I also feel like I can empathize in a different level to other immigrants, and also other immigrants who are experiencing more difficulty experiences than mine. But yeah, as you say, it's like we came here because we wanted, but at the same time, we face a few obstacles when it comes to papers and stuff. And yeah. Also, I think that, for example, I'm gonna show you one artwork, because I think art is shape about the different experiences that we have through life. And I'm gonna, I think, could I maybe become, yeah, I'll try to share an image. So do you see my screen? Do you see the screen? Okay, yes. So now here, I'm sharing this image with you because I think this is the first wall painting that I made, and actually I made it because there was a strong rhetoric. It was in 2016, 2017, when there was a strong rhetoric against Mexicans, and I was already living here in Norway. It was my first year of my master's studies, and I remember I was ready to start mounting an exhibition, but in the context of this.
Can you just show us the picture? Because I think that it didn't open in the big. It's not way much yet big.
Pardon? It's not coming into the screen?
No.
You are screen sharing, it says here.
But I just see like in small, very small picture.
Oh, really? My screen very big? That's strange, yeah? You don't see it?
No.
Ah, okay. I don't know.
Maybe going to the other screen.
There,
there, I can see it now.
Okay, so then it's about not opening, but just clicking. Okay, so this is the image of the piece that I was talking, and just to remember a little bit the context of this year, it was that there were a lot of rhetorics against Mexicans because Trump was the candidate that year for the US, and well, he won eventually, but I felt like, you know, it was my way of digesting these statements from him, and also it was, I mean, it was not just him making these statements, but also there were other political leaders who were expressing themselves against immigrants and against migration, and I just really felt it because I had also become an immigrant myself. And then, so this is how I digested it. And for me, this piece, it was like, it was a lot about taking over the wall, you know, like I felt like I could just take walls as my canvases, but also as a statement, because I, of course, was against the buildment of the wall between the US and Mexico. But then after this piece, I was glad that I had gone up into scale, because before I was not working in these big scales. But afterwards, when time passed, I also thought, you know, I was making that statement in an art school inside of an art gallery. And I think this, in the same way that one is critical towards different situations, I also try to be critical with myself. So I thought, oh, I should take it farther, you know, like, so I thought maybe I should do it in the actual location. So then that summer, I remember that I was already going to Mexico. So then I thought, I'm gonna just go to the real world, you know, and make a real statement, not so safe as in an art gallery, where, because usually in art galleries, everyone in the art schools also, everyone is super kind. So I thought, I'm gonna do it there, which is the actual location. So then when I arrived there by the border, I asked a taxi driver if he could take me to buy some paint. So I did, and then I made the wall painting, and then I felt like, okay, now I felt like I felt more honest, and I felt like then I could rest in a way. And this was my way of digesting these events of 2017. Yes, so now I'm gonna stop sharing the screen now.
Yes, but I think it's really interesting what you're saying, and I admire that you were challenging yourself and going actually to the wall. For me, I think that my approach has been a little bit different than yours. I think now with this label of immigrant in Scandinavia, it has been really noticeable the change in my interest and the issues that matter to me since I moved here. I have always had empathy towards immigrants because I grew up in Guanajuato, and you know, Guanajuato is a part of Mexico where there is a lot of migration to the United States. So it has been something that and then, I mean, you are from the north of Mexico. So I think that you also experienced this since we were child. I think that it's something that we talk about in our countries. But this time, my experience was even more empathic because now I'm an immigrant myself. And I feel like with this, there is like a strong label on my shoulders, like a strong load on my shoulders. Here in Scandinavia, I'm a minority. And I have to make an extra effort to exist and to just like understand everything that happens around me. And I have to work twice as hard to get any opportunity here. I mean, I'm not really complaining that much, but that's the way it is, no? Like I have to fight harder for my space here. And because of this, my artistic practice has become a reflection of my feelings and my experiences. My art is not about migration, and then I can show you some of the pieces, but it's more like about the most important right that a human being deserves, and is to have a safe place to live, like a place where you can shelter, a place where you can just feel safe and that you can grow and then you can achieve your goals. And yeah, so then I think that when I make my sculptures, I always try to create spaces, spaces that could be homes, but also spaces that could be ready to be destroyed and crumble. So that's why, like in my pieces, I want to show fragility, and I want to show because like right now I have been living with a 1-year visa all the time, so I will show you some of my pictures. So then I sort of feel like, how can I really build a life here if I have to think that maybe next time I have to go home? So let me share my screen so you can see some of the pieces. So you will see that I have a messy desktop. But like these are some of my pieces. Like I always try to work with like very, very thin layers of clay. And like with all these places where I can imagine I can hide and I can shelter. But that also they are so open that maybe you are not really protected, and that you are at the mercy of like something horrible to happen. I don't know if I'm a little bit dramatic, but in a way that's like the way I feel. Like I feel anxious about what I'm experiencing here by not being in my country. This is another piece, and also it's like all the time about like imbalance and about that, you know, like you could just breathe and then maybe the piece will just collapse. But yeah, so then I'm not sharing anymore. So then but that's how like my life has changed and my artistic practice has changed. But for you, how it has transformed the fact that you live in Scandinavia? How do you see your artistic practice now? You have already shown us like some pictures, but I know that you have like a very nice picture about feeling powerless in with everything that is happening in Mexico, right? So
sorry, can you hear well? It's just that there's this noise outside. Yeah, do you hear the noise?
No.
Oh, okay, that's good. Yes, yes, I think definitely our artistic practice gets transformed through the different experiences that we have or where we live. The French female artist Louis Bourgeois said that art is not about art, but art is about life, and I like this thought because I agree to that, you know, and I think that the art practice transforms itself. So I think that before I show you this how I have embraced also this being in Scandinavia, I like to show you. I'm gonna share my screen again. Yeah, this image I wanted to maybe talk a little bit about it because as I'm mentioning the context shape us. I was this piece I worked on it like it was like in 2010, so 10 years ago, and I named it it is March and October from the 80s and 2000 30. And what I wanted to mention here is that I would sometimes, very often would feel powerless when I would be in Mexico or hearing about situations of insecurity. And this is one of the reasons why this human figure doesn't have arms and it's just about to receive the shoot of praise. And so yeah, but then now also I want to talk about this piece because I think your question was how has my artistic practice has been shaped in a Scandinavian context or no, European context, but more specifically, I think it's since I moved here to Norway that I started to notice a lot the relationship between the darkness and the light, because for the people that have not been here in Scandinavia, one experiences quite strong contrast between the light and the darkness, and I had not experienced that before, you know, all of these like months of darkness, and suddenly during the summer, like most of the day is like super bright. So I think it's from these thoughts that I wanted to merge the usage of light into my art. And I think, you know, like now I have it here in this piece, but also I have the mix of the wall, you know, and I only could have gotten there through what I have, since I already felt like I needed to take a statement on the wall. And then I have this with the light because from how that was my way of how I embraced the darkness through the winter, right? Because I was hoping to see light, and so yeah, I'm just expanding a little bit more, but I think one really becomes aware of the darkness and the light here, and I think it's something that I would like to explore further, the mix between light and my artwork. Yeah.
And I think that by being here, we have become really observant of everything that happens around us. Because I think that we have so much space, because again, like talking about the spaces that I'm really interested in, sort of feel that there is also like, by not being in Mexico, by being outside of Mexico, we have this sort of space to see your country in a different light, but also to see this in a different way, to see Scandinavia in a different way. But I think that I have to come back to the fact that for me, it has played a big role, this new life as an immigrant. Because like I all the time feel like, how can I be Mexican in a Scandinavian context, and what is my role here? What is my role for the Scandinavian society, and what is my role in the Mexican society? And then for many things, I live in a constant state of anxiety, and I think that that's like I reflected in my pieces. And I also feel like, you know, like the world is changing so fast that all the migration policies everywhere are becoming really tough and tougher and tougher, and the violence and misery in developing countries are reaching like a really bad point. So I always question like what's going to happen in the future. And coming back to this way that we look at Mexico from far away, how do you experience your country from here? Like, I know that you are all the time, just like me, in contact with people that live there, in contact like with the news, like we read a lot about how the narco traffic is growing in Mexico, like about the violence, about the murders of women, about like right now what is happening with the COVID-19, which for me is like really surreal, because like I'm staying now in Sweden, where like we were not even in quarantine. So it is like really, really weird But how do you process this news, and what is the feeling that you get by being far away?
I think it's very strange in a way, because of course I experience it and I feel it, and I follow the news. Sometimes when I'm homesick, I listen to the journalists that I used to listen all the time in Mexico in the radio, and uh, but of course I'm not going through the same situations right now. For example, if there's something going on in my home city, or just with the whole corona, also I think it was not as strong here in Scandinavia as how it is in Mexico right now. So I guess I experience it as an observant from the distance, sometimes with a lot of guilt, because I don't I'm not there, but I'm here, and also I feel very powerless most of the times. But I remember that I would feel powerless also in Mexico when I would be reading the news, and I would get also a lot of anxiety. And so I think I experienced it in a different level here than when I was there. But it's sort of like if I would have one heart here and one heart there. And of course, I try also to go as much as I can, but it's not always possible. But yeah, I try to be in touch with my family and friends from there. Yeah.
And to eat Mexican food as many times as you can, just like me. But I agree with you. Like, I also feel powerless. And I think that for the past 5 years, just like you said, that you have like one heart there and one heart here, like I sort of feel like I have been here physically in Scandinavia, but like emotionally, I'm so involved with Mexico. So I keep watching the news, and I'm really aware what is happening there and all the help that Mexico needs. And, you know, like, even though we are, that we said like we are facing so many challenges here, also we have to be so aware that living here is a privilege. And then I always wonder, like, how can I use that privilege to help my country? And that's what I'm really thankful that we came across Nienmore, because Nienmore is like a project that is really making a change, small change in Mexico, in Juárez. Maybe it's not making a change for everybody, but it's making a change for at least like 10 women. And I'm really happy that I'm able to contribute with my privilege, as like calling my privilege education and the knowledge that I have, so then I can help them to grow and I can help them in their survival. And also, I think that I learned from the project that everybody can make a difference in the life of somebody there in Mexico, somebody that is really vulnerable, and that we can contribute with something. And I think that the most beautiful part of this project is that the project is providing tools so that women can learn how to sew clothes, which maybe it sounds like not like a big thing, but I think it is really big, because then they can just support themselves economically, and I think that that's like really, really important. So, but you have been also collaborating with Myanmar sometimes. Yeah.
I think it's important also to remember that, you know, you and I have art as a tool, and I think art is a powerful element to use. Sometimes I also wonder, like, oh, you know, like maybe I should be doing more. And sometimes I think it's something that I have not resolved yet. But at least I think that it's you and I as female Latin American artists, I think we should, it's important that we take on like with strong steps also, because when we do it for us, I think that we also after us maybe, or before us. I don't know, there will be like younger girls coming, right? So I think it's important to remember that, but I agree, I think it's, I respect projects like Nian more because of what they're doing, and especially for the women of Juárez. Yeah,
yeah, and I think that I agree with you, because like in my case, and I know in your case, being here has not been really easy. I mean, we are not millionaires that just decided to go to Scandinavia to be an artist, right? Like we have encountered so many challenges along this way. Like it has been an economical struggle, and then also what we have said, like just to adapt to a new culture that is so far away from our own culture. But then when I feel that I cannot do it anymore, when I feel like, oh, what am I doing? I remember that what you're saying, that perhaps by resisting, we are encouraging more young girls, or not young, or, you know, everybody, like women that pursue their dreams, and if they want to be an artist, like then there is a way. So I think that we really need to see more representation of women in arts, and more representation of women of color, minorities, indigenous people, blacks, so we can make it like more even for everybody, like more equal. So I think that that's like a good thought when I'm really tired and I want to give up. But to conclude, like I have a question for you. You know, do you think that without knowing it, 5 years ago, you took the biggest and most impactful decision of your life by choosing to move to Oslo?
well, I don't know if it's been the biggest decision in my life, but definitely has made a big impact in my life. Yeah, yeah, in every way. You know, I'm here, I'm not there, and you know, I'm experiencing things there. But then I stopped living the everyday life in Mexico with my family, and yeah, for sure, it's been a big decision, and I don't know what's gonna happen. You know, one never knows what's gonna happen. I think one can only know the steps already taken, and those can only be seen when we look behind. So yeah, it's been an important decision for sure.
Yes, I know. I think that that's like a question that we cannot answer. Maybe we can answer it in 20 years. But yeah, I think that that's all. I'm just going with the reflection of like, did we win or lose a country? We cannot answer either. So thank you so much, Lucia. It has been a pleasure. And then we have to say that we tried to make this conversation many times, and then the technology was not in our side. So hopefully this time it's going to make it. So thank you so much, Lucia. And remember, yeah, sorry? Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you, Nian. And also thank you the people that tried to follow it live, but now we have this. Yes.
Yeah. Now hopefully it's much better than than before. Anyway, like I just want to remind you that we have a bundle dye workshop, so you can learn all the Myanmar techniques, and it's going to be on September 5th, and the cost is $25. Please support us, and you can find the link to register in the bio. So thank you so much, Lucia.
Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Nian.
Bye.